Genshin Impact has a lot of characters, and by a lot, I mean a lot. It's truly amazing how they can put out multiple characters every 6 weeks just like that. There's almost too many at this point. We've got a handful of cat girls, a literal child to a literal child, Nouvelet, the ordainer of inexorable judgment. Word. Everyone has gotten that rush of happiness when they pull their very first 5-star character, but what if your first 5-star wasn't a character? Okay, that's probably happened to quite a lot of people, but even so, a 5-star is a 5-star, so how good are they really? Can you beat Genshin Impact with Only Skyward Blade? Now, unlike my other videos that contain a whole document of rules, terms and conditions, privacy notices, and the like, we only have a short list of 5 here, so here they are. The only weapon I can use is Skyward Blade. I can only use characters that can use Skyward Blade. All banners are allowed, no food during combat, and because it's a challenge with the weapon as the main focus, no artifacts. Keep an eye out for this rule specifically because I might change it later in the run. But with that being said, we start off by naming our traveler Give Me 5-star please, and a 5-star we did get. Wait, no, there's no f***ing way, right? Okay, well, that's cool. I guess my luck for the year is already all gone. We made our way over to Amber's domain and spent 20 whole minutes trying to clear the domain. I don't know if it was the ping from the European servers or my stupid Chungus keyboard, but I do know it totally wasn't my fault. Please, please, please. Yes! Yes! Oh, get me out! We successfully clear the domain and move on to Kaya's one, which is comparatively way easier if not for these spikes. After unlocking Kaya, we immediately switch to him because he's faster, he can B-hop, and he can also skip Lisa's domain way easier. But that was basically Act 1 complete, so next was Amber and Kaya's story quests, as well as some ley lines until we hit AR 10. With that comes 10 free standard pulls, and the banner we choose here is very important. The standard wish and the beginner banner are both very good for us here, but each banner has its differences. Firstly, we need characters that can use Skyward Blade, essentially sword characters. The beginner banner has Bennett and Xingqiu as 4 stars and Jean, Qiqi and Keqing as 5 stars. Standard banner has more 4-star sword characters, but the probability of getting one decreases. Basically, it comes down to if I want to make the run more interesting by getting a newer 4-star character. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. However, reality is often disappointing, and I pulled non-sword user A and non-sword user B. But oh well, we're just gonna have to ride with our trusty cavalry captain Kaya for now. Or not, because he's still another horse after 4.5 years. Our first fight in Act 2 is against the obstacle designed specifically for Amber enemy, but our sword is incredibly broken. We easily destroy it and head over to the cathedral to steal the Holy Lyre.
Barbados bless you. It's so
Who the hell are you talking to? What the f-
from the acting grandmaster.
That's a bit rude, don't you think?
Oh no! We're busted! Run! What?
Wait, why is Amber What? Did you see Amber in that cutscene? What the f? Hey Amber. We then go retrieve Himmel the hero, where we beat up Zamenhof, only with Kaya because Diluc is a Claymore user. Hitting AR 12 means we can complete our dailies and unlock Cecilia Garden along the way. Now this is the one domain that we need because it contains weapon materials for our one and only Skyward Blade. Now keep note that we do not only have access to Kaya, but we also have access to Traveler. Kaya is amazing, but he can't complete every single task given to him. Not because he's a lazy f***er, but because he's cryo. Yes, he has the ability to deal big damage and slow movements, but Traveler is unique in her own special way. For example, many different puzzles and fights early in the game rely on Pyro. The only problem is we don't have access to Pyro yet, so what can we do? Well, there's no way I'm waiting for this dude to charge at me, so here comes the trusty Pyro Archer. Watch this 5-minute hack to gain Pyro Traveler before Natlan. We switch back to Kaya for the Ruin Guard fight because, like I said a bit earlier, he slows enemies down. On the way to the other crystals, we did the Doored Upper Gorge quest. For the first camp, I barely managed to complete the challenge in time because of this annoying guy. The next camp was harder to solve because firstly, we didn't have any Electro characters. Okay, easy solution. Get hit by an Electro Archer. New problem, water. The monument is surrounded by water, which means 1, you're always going to be affected by Hydro, and 2, you're never going to be able to swirl Electro. Even though there's a rock here, you still get affected by Hydro. Trust me, I tried. The only way to do this part is to get hit by an Electro Archer, then use your Elemental Burst just outside of the pool so it doesn't swirl Hydro first. The next one is much easier. Lure the Cryo Abyss Mage into these flowers here and then use Pyro from everything else to defeat everything else. The next domain was pretty easy. Kaya is the man for the job here. Oh, Kaya, you The only enemy of note here is the Pyro Abyss Mage, but since we're Kaya, it's a walk in the park. emphasis on the walk. Out of all the Abyss Mages, Pyro and Cryo are probably the easiest Abyss Mages to dodge, and so we complete the domain with a mere 83 health remaining. But that was Act 2 complete, so there's a bunch more grinding involved before Act 3 begins. By now, you're probably all wondering, what's so good about Skyward Blade? What makes it different from all the other weapons? And if you know already, you're a big nerd and should probably touch some grass. But let me explain it so everyone knows what's up. Skyward Blade is a 5-star sword that gives a buff when an elemental burst is used. It boosts your movement speed and attack speed by 10%, as well as giving an additional hit when you use a normal or charged attack. The buff itself lasts for 12 seconds, but it doesn't seem like there's any cooldown to it. If that's too many words, I'll translate it to Razor language just for you. Burst equals damage big. Another good thing about it is that the weapon's secondary attribute is energy recharge, which means we're going to be getting those bursts up way faster, which then means lots of damage. Oh my god. I'm not done. Anyways, back to my struggles. We return to doing Amber's story quest, but her domain is, not surprisingly, an obstacle designed specifically for Amber. So with our characters right now, we can't beat it. So then we move to the Temple of the Falcon, which is again an obstacle designed specifically for Amber. But you can't even do the skip this time, it doesn't let you. So that's a good 45 minutes of my time wasted. Next was Shanling's quest, and yes, you can actually skip this one. It just requires a lot of time and effort in comparison to the other domains. I'm fucking stuck. The Cryo Rezic Vine was only level 16, so this fight was a piece of cake, but now with Geo Traveler, we return to Amber's story quest because with our rocks, we can do this. Lisa's quest was next, so I tried exploring around the domain to find a skip, and I found it. But you can't actually skip it. It doesn't let you. Even if you get into the room, you can't open the chest. So it's time to brute force it. It took so many tries because you're supposed to use Lisa because there's water everywhere, but I'm using Geo Traveler against Cryo Slime, so I guess I'm Anna now or something. This fight took so many attempts I almost lost my mind. But after a lot of perseverance, we finally managed to pull through. Yes! Yes! Next was a Cryo Abyss Mage, which was significantly easier. I've honestly never before been more glad to fight an Abyss Mage of all things. We then pulled our favorite 4-star sword character, Diona. Cool. Literally. But now it was time for Act 3, which meant it was finally time to go to Stormterror's lair.
It's stuck.
It's stuck.
Let's make a detour then. Heading up.
Let's make a detour then. Heading up. Wait, there's an unusual hilichurl here. Goodbye. Unlocking the seals was easy work, but the Dvalin fight was not. I don't think you understand just how many times I had to break this meaty ass shield just to whittle his health down slower than Sumeru Act 2. The no artifacts rule is really starting to kick in here. Both our character and our weapon are level 40, but we're doing the high damage number of 8. After 6 minutes of tussling with this overgrown lizard, we finally beat Dvalin and restored peace to Mondstadt, before Vinti got kicked in the balls. And so Mondstadt was complete, which meant it was time to move on to the prosperous nation of Geo. You thought it was Liyue, but it was me, grinding! Alright, please? The other one I didn't need! Now hopefully, after completing Mondstadt, the game automatically unlocks a bunch of waypoints for you, so there's a lot of free experience from statues and other waypoints within Fontaine and Natlan just for you to get. This guy's now called Yunobo because we renamed our traveler to Link if you haven't noticed. Hello? Are you okay? Alright. What is this guy doing though? Like, and he's off again. Deer in the headlights be like. But we finally start Liyue after dilly-dallying around for about 10 hours. A bit slow, I know, but in my defense, there's a lot of stupid obstacles designed specifically for Amber, both in the overworld and in domains. And unfortunately for us, Amber obviously can't use Skyward Blade.
So sorry to hear about your
God
that passed away. He gets 5 big booms. Boom! 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 Boom!
Our first fight is against the Millilith, and Mooncarver gives us a bunch of energy recharge, so we just blast through them. Kai is also probably just the best pick for this fight because he heals on his skill and his burst is crazy good against groups like these. Mountain Shaper was next, and all we had to do was free a guy from Amber. I can never get away from her, please help me. And luckily for us, we got it first try. finally. Oh, you. Next was Cloud Retainer, and since we have access to Geo Traveler, the skip is extremely easy. After that, all we had to do was go see the short guy in the tall building and fight this Ruin Hunter, but Kaya ain't a Knight of Favonius for nothing, so he beat the non-living Solar Soul out of this robot creature. Oh, I'm not talking to you, Vlad. No, I'm not going into the bang! And that was Act 1 complete, so you guessed it, more grinding. Next was Razor's quest, and I brought along Kaya, which was actually kinda stupid of me because this big guy is immune to cryo. All is well though, because the skill heals him a bit, even if it's a measly 49 health. Fight is basically dodge till you make it, and well, I made it. Even if it took 5 minutes and I didn't even get the guy down to half health, we passed the test. But now, the greatest moment of the run is here, because look who's on the banner. That's right, the most broken 4-star in the game. And although Bennett is an unlucky fella, it seems that we were lucky today. Now, Bennett is important for 3 different reasons. Firstly, because we're not using artifacts, Bennett is a significant power spike compared to Kaya and the Traveler. Bennett's burst gives us a significant attack boost, which means instead of doing 8 damage, we'll be doing 12. Secondly, also to do with Bennett's burst, he can heal like crazy. This guy can literally get up close and personal with his own boss, even if it takes 9 whole minutes to defeat it. And guess what? We're gonna have to do this multiple times. Lastly, Bennett is a pyro unit. It's one of the 3 required elements in the entire game, and it's just a nice element to have around. Also, because our weapon skills off energy recharge, it's really good on Bennett, because again, no artifacts. Next up is Diluc's quest. There's one Hydro Mage we have to fight here, which is way too easy thanks to Boken Boy. Every other enemy is a piece of cake. This Geo Slime gets obliterated by our plunge attacks, and the Cryo Mage isn't even Cryo or a Mage when faced up against the strongest. You gotta be kidding me. We also did this quest and you don't even have to kill the Ruin Guards, you just have to get them close enough to the water. But after 3 hours of grinding, we finally made it to Liyue Act 2. The Jade fight was way too easy, because we now have Bennett, which means the next fight was Madame Peng's Teapot. But the only thing in here were slimes. Even the Geo Slime got a taste of Bennett's adventure team. Actually, now that I think about it, it's pretty accurate. The Great Zhong Ballista fight was also not too bad. Treasure hoarders are essentially buffed up pillar trolls. Actually, what if we sit in Zhongli's chair? Oh, he's sitting in my chair. Zhongli, I can't sit there. Zhongli, you're in my seat. And with Act 2 complete, we faced our new greatest enemy, the Ascension Domain. Most of the domain isn't all that terrible. The first couple of rooms are really easy to get past, even if the enemies are higher level than most of the overworld mobs. The only problem is this challenge room right here. It's timed. 15 enemies in 2 minutes doesn't sound all that bad, but you see, we're significantly weaker than what the normal player would be at this point in the game. Even with Bennett's attack boost, we're just short of clearing the domain. I attempted this challenge 8 times. 8 times because it was that close. Either the big dude decides to do the swing attack in the last 5 seconds, or I don't position the burst in the right place, or I don't have enough energy at the start to get the maximum number of burst rotations. This Ascension Domain was an absolute nightmare. Okay, 4-star. Please be a sword character. That is not a sword character. Next was Xingqiu's quest, but I don't even need to comment on these fights. Bennett is seriously a monster. Sunshine. You are my sunshine. My only sunshine. And after a couple more hours of grinding, I came to this decision. Alright, I'm gonna make the decision now. For example, Bennett's probably gonna be the strongest character here. Bennett with Skyward Blade is not going to clear the level 35 Ascension Domain. And that's because of how the game scales. To give you some more insight, the game expects you to upgrade your characters in a way in which your levels, weapons, artifacts, and talents are all at a relatively equal stage. Right now, we're at a healthy enough stage to pass trials and defeat multiple enemies. However, our weapon only provides so much attack after each ascension, around an 80 to 100 attack increase. In the early game, artifacts don't account for much because you're not expected to have high rarity and high leveled artifacts, but this isn't the case for much later in the game where they give massive increases to multiple stats. Combined with the fact that the game expects you to have multiple characters that react with each other, we're not just weak, we're literally asking for our death. It's almost impossible to progress as our world level increases, and so I made the decision to change our artifact rule. However, I've limited it to only 3-star artifacts, which gives us about a 50% damage boost at this point in the game. I could explain why, but you've already heard a lot of me yapping, so I'll be nice and just skip ahead to Act 3. We start off by using Anima Traveler to travel to the Jade Palace Island thingy that isn't actually the Jade Palace Island thingy. What a Sigma. And then we start our first fight against Treasure Hoarders. Next up, we easily sneak past the Fatui because Bennett's adventure team has one person. We're way too hard to detect. These Fatui masks must be doing wonders for their hearing. We then put on a performance of a lifetime as Link. And fight these Whopper Flowers, but they're cryo, so you know how that goes. Child was next, and honestly, I was a bit scared of this one, but again, Bennett is just built different. All I did was just wait for him to teleport to me and then beat his ass. I can't believe I suffered more against this piece of shit. Child has been power crept by a Hilichurl, I don't know what to say. But of course, he was such a sore loser, he summoned Osile to do his dirty work. Don't worry, we weren't afraid to get down and dirty ourselves. This fight was very simple. Defeat the Fatui, get buffed by love. Hottest character in the game. Defeat the Fatui again, and as Confucius once said, get bitch. Act 3 had been completed. And now for our second power spike of the run, Bennett's C1, Grand Expectation. Too bad Bennett has no grand expectations of him, just like how your parents don't have any grand expectations of you. Bennett's C1 means our attack bonus is applied regardless of how much health we're at, and we get another 20% of his base attack as well. Since our weapon has a high attack stat, our attack is going to get a good slap on the back. Again, I'll simplify it down to razor language for you. Damage big. Back to the game. I was running around talking about my next strategy, but I accidentally started the Jade Chamber quest. Now this turned out to be a massive mistake, but I'll get to it when I get to it. Spoiler alert, it happens kinda soon. So now it was time to start Dainsleif's quest, which involved a couple of Abyss Mages. The Hydro Abyss Mage went down easily, but the Pyro Abyss Mage was a bit of work. Because we're Bennett, we can only hit the Abyss Mage with physical attacks, so I lured the stupid bum over to these stairs where we could continuously hit him with these plunge attacks to break the shield faster. Now for this next Abyss Mage, it was Pyro again, so we switched back to Anima Traveler, and this one we just ignored. The next Abyss Mage was Hydro, so you already know how that one goes, and so was this Abyss Herald. However, the first time you don't have to defeat him, you just have to take him down to about a third health. Now guess what time it is? That's right, Abyss Mage time. Normally I'd be absolutely losing it, but the Boken Boy strikes again. We switched to Traveler for this next fight, but we experienced our first death because I didn't see this dumb farming robot shoot its missiles definitely used for farming at us. Yeah, well, then we had to fight another one, but again, the Pyro Abyss Mages are one of the easiest to dodge, so this one went down no problem. Next up, we had to fight this guy again, and Razor decided to generously help us do absolutely nothing. Like, I get you're trying to protect Boreas, but come on, you could at least give us a little hand. Even without Razor, this guy went down smoothly. The Hydro Herald has very predictable moves, and as long as you dash out as soon as you see them prepare for an attack, most of the time, you should be good. Our fun fact here, it says defeat all opponents, and by all opponents, it means all. So this one Cryo Artichoke right here who didn't even participate and was just walking around mindlessly is included. But this Herald was more persistent than that one guy booting of Barbara. So we had one last fight with him before finishing Act 4. And now, it was time for me to do something extremely sacrilegious. After the 5.0 version update, the game allows you to quick start the Natlan Archon quest after finishing Liyue Act 3. However, story-wise, it takes place after Fontaine, which you can't start until reaching Adventure Rank 40 and finishing Sumeru. Hear me out. Because this is the challenge run, I think it is perfectly fine to start these quests before Inazuma, as long as I complete Natlan Act 5 after Fontaine. Now the reason being is 1. There will be multiple points within this challenge run where we have to farm adventure experience to reach the next region, and 2. Story quests and other important quests give a lot of experience. We're basically hitting 2 birds with 1 stone here. Natlan's Archon quest gives a ton of experience compared to other regions because it's supposedly much later in the game, so what this means is we can easily reach the next regions without having to grind as much, and also complete parts of the story we need to complete later anyways. And hey, if you think it's more legal than whatever the hell was happening in the academia, comment down below for Natlan! And I'll think about not doing it next time. Anyways, Natlan Act 1 starts off with us meeting Kachina and knocking her off the bridge, killing her in the process. Oh I think I just bugged the game. Oh, what the? Our first fight was with a Trial Kachina and a Trial Mualani, so unfortunately we were unable to see our Skyward Blade in action. Our next fights were also with a Trial Kachina, so again, no blade, but hey, Turbo Twirly is pretty cool, so I'll give her that. And while we sent a child off to the mines, we in turn went to take a soak in the springs. But it looks like some abyssal monsters also wanted to take a dip. Unfortunately for them, they physically can't. Fight against the abyssal monsters was a piece of cake, but the real challenge was this ugly pylon with this ugly ass shield. Just kidding. Bennett is amazing here because burning the grass here means continuous pyro damage, which also means the Abyssal Shield gets deleted faster than Auntie Atea. Sorry, not sorry. And that was Act 1 complete, so now we can finally start Inazuma. Jokes. Now the important thing here is that I put my blade on Traveler because of the upcoming fights. The next 2 fights are against 2 martial artists, and the only character I can use is Traveler. Martial artist? More like partial fartist. This guy didn't even get to say a whole word before the flatulence left his cheeks. This guy's called the Dark Horse, but with how fast I made him submit, he might as well be the regular horse Kai has been looking for all this time. Treasure Hoarders, hoarding a 0-10 losing streak against me. And Fade the Fly sure went flying after I gave him a passion overload. Anyways, you remember the Jade Chamber problem I was talking about? Yeah, well, here's the problem. I can't finish the Archon quest because of one NPC being occupied. The fun part is I actually have to complete half of the stinking quest before I even interact with her. So after fighting a Geovishap I didn't want to interact with for 20 minutes, we finally finished the Inazuma Prologue quest. So now it was time to go to Inazuma. Defending the transport balloon came first, but thanks to Inazuma being an island nation, there's plenty of water to go around. So luckily for us, we get to vape all over these dudes. There is, however, an Electrogranum here, so we can play it smart and proc Overload on the big guy, which allows us to do a ton more damage. 3 Dementia Patients later, and we're going to commit more illegal activity by busting out this false vision printer. Now these enemies are starting to become tanky as Our Skyward Blade is starting to fall from grace because it's now taking a while to kill these dudes, even though we're 13 whole levels higher than them. Also, they can parry all of our attacks, so you know that extra attack that blade gives us? Yeah, well, that doesn't do anything either now. But Act 1 was now complete, so on to Act 2 we go. Nope. Act 2 begins with a Shogun against the Showdown, okay. And because I don't want to make it a Benna only run, I've unveiled our secret 4th sword user,
Pleased
Lynette.
to make your acquaintance.
Lynette is good here because she's level 20, which means we can trigger the cutscene in under 10 seconds. Alright, thank you Lynette, I don't want to play with you anymore. We save Tepe from these thugs and he takes us to the resistant camp where Bennett's luck finally hit us. What the f? But now it was time for the archery test. At first, I thought it was impossible, we can't use any bow or catalyst users, and our skills or bursts can't be aimed or go far enough to reach the training dummies. Or so I thought. Now you may be thinking about Geo Traveler, and yes, that is a possibility, but what if I told you there was another contender for the job? Remember the waypoints that automatically got unlocked for us earlier? That's right, we have access to Fontaine, and that means we have access to Hydro Traveler. Now Hydro Traveler's skill allows him to aim Hydro bullets for a few seconds, and that's exactly what we need to clear this test. However, there is a slight problem. During this particular wave, there's a blue training dummy in front of a red training dummy, and so we've got to rotate fast enough so that we don't hit the behind dummy, or any other dummies elsewhere. The only good thing about Hydro Traveler is that we actually get some interruption resistance while using the skill, so lightning doesn't make us turn into Fade the Flyer. Because the lightning couldn't hit us, it decided to screw us up in other ways. Looking good? What the hell? But that was the last of it because we managed to successfully clear it the next time. For this next fight, I didn't want to use Hydro Traveler, but I couldn't change my party, so oh well. These soldiers got super wet after dealing with me. The next set of fights were a 1v1, so I had switched back to Anemo Trap. We're able to use our skills and bursts unlike the previous arena fights, so we can make use of the big damage that we get from swirling Hydro. Now there's no rain everywhere, but for some reason, the game recognizes that we're close enough to this body of water, so I don't know, Bob's your uncle or whatever the British say. Act 2 was now complete, so we move straight on to Act 3, where we travel to the most beautiful island in the game. No, this fuck-ass Skippy Island here. Oh wow, Fischl, I didn't know you could wield Skyward Blade. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Fischl. And now this Electro Lavature was no biggie at all, we didn't even take damage. The Delusion Factory was next, and there's only 2 problems here. One is the Valorant players, and the other one is Terraria Summoner class. The Valorant players stink and have so much pyro protecting them, they're literally asking for a bath. But it's fine, we can burn that stench away even if it is less effective. The Summoner does jack, but his minions are really annoying because they do electro damage, and Bennett gets afflicted with pyro whenever he ults, so put 1 and 1 together and you get 2.75. After going through the training arc to beat the Shogun, we finally face off against the Shogun. Just kidding, Senora time baby! Phase 1 was a walk in the park. Actually, it wasn't much of a walk at all. She kinda just stands still so we can go until she transforms into, holy moly. Welcome to the playground, but not for me, for her. Senora suddenly gets a 70% resistance to pyro, which means we're gonna do a lot less damage. Now we're in hot trouble. Even so, Bennett can just withstand her burn because again for the millionth time, he's broken. So now it was time to face off against A herself, and don't worry, everything's gonna be A-okay. Okay, sorry, let me just die then. We trigger the cutscene early and get automatically healed back to full, so we can just go absolutely ham. Bennett's inbuilt healing combined with the regeneration buff just means we never die, and so we hack and hack and hack away at A's health until she admits her loss. And with Inazuma complete, it was time to move on to the chasm. The Serpent Knights are easy fodder, these guys attack slower than Ruin Guards, and it's really easy to stagger them as well. There's 3 sets of these, but they're all basically the same enemies apart from the second and third fights having an additional archer. The next fight is against a Hydro Abyss Herald, but we've already fought one of these before, so piece of cake. The Electrolector was next, but he doesn't really move around much, so you've just got to watch out for their attacks. Next were the Abyss Mages, and I used Link for this one because there's 3 runes with Pyro Mages, but I accidentally died on the 3rd rune. The sad thing is you have to do all of the rooms again, even if you've already cleared them before. But don't worry, we got them all the next time around and completed the Chasm quest. Alright. He's a sword character.
Hello, I'm Lanyan.
So next up was Sumeru, and by Sumeru I mean Natlan Act 2. We're a bit off Adventure Rank 35, so there's a bit more grinding involved. Our first fight was against some Abyssal Saurians, which wasn't too bad, until we got to this fight. I was stupid enough to bring Bennett to a Fireball fight, so this Abyss Mage was an absolute menace. Luckily for us, there were also some Geosaurians, so we had access to Pyro Shields. Next up there are more Saurians again, but these guys do hardly any damage to us, so we can just heal everything back up. The next big fight was against some Rift Hounds, but one fantastic voyage later, and we sent them on their very own voyage. But that's Natlan Act 2 complete, so we can finally start Sumeru. But first we upgrade Bennett to level 70, which allows us to reach our 3rd power spike, Fear Naught. Bennett's Ascension talent allows us to use his skill twice as fast when he bursts, and so he gains energy recharge twice as fast as well. Combined with our broken energy recharge weapon, we're getting our bursts up as soon as the cooldown refreshes. We also choose to be a bit scummy and not do the Ascension domain because of 2 reasons. Firstly, is the enemies in these quests will be way easier. We're guaranteed to do all of Sumeru plus a couple of Natlan quests before we hit the required experience for Fontaine, which brings us to the second point. I really want to do Natlan Act 4 while our word level is still low. I know it's a bit of a low ball to do it this way, but the game's the game, and if it allows me to do it this way, I'm going to fully take advantage of it. Now there's only a few fights in Sumeru Act 1, the first is against the Withering. Luckily for us, all of the red flower thingies are accessible from the ground, so we can just use our charged attack to delete them from existence. The fungi are also not too bad, they don't really attack often and they float just low enough for us to hit them with our skill. Oh!
Couldn't break.
What the f- The next big fight was in the Dream Domain, but we can't actually beat this Herald. We just have to lower its health so it transforms. The fungi combat test is a joke, and the final fight is against Ainalachma, but these guys are nothing to us now. We've basically ascended to godhood. In fact, since we're so strong, let me skip forward to Act 4 because Act 2 is very action-packed and Act 3 is literally just Rift Hounds. But I made them beg for mercy like the dogs they are. The first major point is the Elazar Hospital, and since we have access to Traveler, igniting these monuments was pretty easy. And after our long trek in the desert, we had to fight 2 groups of fungi, which made Bennett look like a fun guy. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Act 5 begins with a fake fight against Ra and his Mans, and now Bennett has an actual adventure team. 5 minutes is way too long for us to clean up Raman's crew, so down they go. The Fatui were next, and I did get low because of this Electro Hamadu that kept on overloading me. Pause. But one fantastic voyage later, and we can keep going for hours. After freeing Nahida from prison, we're now Nilou, but we don't have our beloved weapon on us. So now it was time to face Scaramouche. I don't even need to comment on these Fatui fights, they either get obliterated or stun-locked or both. Now if you haven't seen my other videos, my favorite thing to do in the Scaramouche first phase is just to stun him with the double electro. It's essentially a free win if your character can defeat him before he gets back up. In the second phase, you've just got to survive until he shows this cutscene, and from then on it's an easy game. Bennett is just the perfect character. He's probably the only sword character that I have that can consistently destroy the electro turrets because of his charged skill.
Get out of here!
Now, for the Bird of Consciousness, the first island is skippable but the rest aren't. It's fine though because the hardest one has Rift Hounds. The corrosion debuff on these guys isn't based on level, it's a set percentage. The corrosion only does about 5% of our max HP over 10 seconds and we can heal all that up in less than 1, so it's not a big worry at this stage of the game. The only enemy of note on the boat itself was this Electro Lawacho, but we're Bennett, so bing bang boom and goodbye, see you next month. That concluded Act 5, but we still had about 17,000 experience needed to hit Adventure Rank 40, so onto Carry Bear we went. The first lot of enemies were slimes, but thanks to our trusty plunge attack, these guys were no more. The only other thing to watch out for here was the Cryo Herald, but we fought that guy like crazy, so bye bye sucker. And after tons of pulling in our conquest, we finally managed to pull one of the most broken 5-star sword characters. Okay, 5-star. Right off the bat. No! Why does this always happen to me? Like, I would be happy if I lost to like a Chi-Chi or a Ka-Ching, but D-Luke, bruh. Alright, now Natlan Act 3 begins with a fight against the Fatui. First we take out the Hydro Gunner because he heals, and then the other two are whatever. The Electro Hammer is the most annoying for sure because he's guaranteed to overloading make you explode. This next fight against the Abyssal Pylon is a bit of a cheat. You get access to this Petli Saw back here, so all you need to do is dig underground and continuously hit it. Saurians somehow don't get affected by corrosion, so it is extremely safe. I did make sure to switch to Link before the fight as well, just in case. Those are the only fights in Act 3, so on to Act 4. We made a quick work of the Fatui here, and then we went to fight this long-named long-body bump, which was honestly a pretty clean fight. It attacks slow and we out-heal its damage. But now it was time for the biggest fight sequence in existence. The first fight was against these Hilichurls, but the Natlanese already defeated the big one, so before I even got there, I barely broke out a sweat. The next fight we can choose, and this choice affects a fight later in the quest, so we pick Under Siege because personally I think it's easier for both fights. The next fight is Echo Through the Valley, and this one is easy because you can just burn the grass beneath the pylon and it destroys the elemental shield. Key site defense is next, and the first half is also pretty easy. The only problem is this Geo Saboteur, but Bennett's skill can knock him down just like that. The pylon doesn't have grass under it, so we can't burn it, but with enough hits, it falls apart. The second half of the fight seems pretty hard because there's multiple pylons, but it's literally a joke. We have access to a Yumka Saw, so we can blow the pylons up in 2 hits. The next few fights are when things really start to get dangerous. We can now choose between the Rift Hounds or Abyssal Monsters, and we have to do both fights at some point. However, the order in which you pick the fights does matter. Whatever you pick first will be harder than the second one. If you choose Rift Hounds first, there will be a lot of them, but they will also have the larger doggos. However, if you choose the Abyssal Monsters, the enemies will be Papillas, so they will have elemental shields. I figured that I didn't want to touch those elemental shields, so we went to find out what the dog doing. Remember that Under Siege from earlier? We're back here now, and we've got a lovely NPC to help us fight. I tried to keep this dangerous Saboteur alive so we could hit the Papilla with burning, and it worked for the first shield, but the Sama wasn't a big fan of NTR, so they tipped for the next fight. I tried to get it to touch some grass, but it's just like me and refuses to do so. So I guess I'll just hit it with my skill another 20 times. Next up were the Abyssal Monsters I mentioned earlier, and because we chose to do this fight second, they don't have an elemental shield to break. They're basically the same as their Saurian counterparts. Fast forward to this fight, and the pylon had moved from its previous spot. We can't even burn the grass beneath it now. Oh well, here we go. Again, more Papillas. How great. The stupid Petli Saw doesn't even attack it for us. And now everything changes when Mawika goes poosh, whoosh, kaboom, and misses every single fireball on the enemies. For Natlan! For Natlan! For Natlan! For Natlan! Oh, for Natlan! No more? For Natlan! And Act 4 was now complete, so we moved to the interlude. Nah, screw that. It's time to finally ascend. We defeat the domain this time and reach Adventure Rank 40, which is both good and bad. It's good because we can finally start Fontaine, but it's bad because we just ascended our word level from 3 to 5, and the enemies are going to be way stronger. Now let's breeze through Fontaine because there's not a lot of combat and we get drowned in dialogue. Act 1 has us first collect these flowers, but we have Hydro Traveler, so there's no problem at all. Act 2 makes us fight a bunch of robots, and they just had to be Electro. Overload is so annoying seeing as we get launched every 2 seconds. We just can't get any work done. Even this big guy is Electro, hello? Like, come on, we're in the nation of water, can't we have a single Hydro enemy? Okay. I clearly took our godhood for granted because I feel like Wanderer right now. These guys are an absolute pain. Now I thought the Ruin Guard would be the most annoying, but no, this Hydro Rogue is far worse. The Ruin Guard is by far the easiest to dodge in the room. Even if he does a spin, as long as you can run around the edge, you're safe. But one hit from this Hydro Rogue does literally half of my HP. This room allows for 0 screw-ups. All it takes is to get hit twice and then you're in lethal territory. And the annoying thing is, the Ruin Guard is the one you have to get rid of first. I died multiple times just trying to figure out how to do this, and before you ask, well, why don't you level your character up to level 80? Oh, I can't. I literally can't. Bennett and Link both use Windwheel Asters, and since I did this challenge over the course of a few days, there's not enough flowers to go around. But eventually I figured it out. Taking down the Ruin Guard is not the hard part, it's dodging everything else. I have to position my camera so I can see all 3 enemies on the screen at a time and literally dodge every single attack. Getting hit by the Anima Rogue is fine, but I need to avoid the Hydra Rogue at all costs because almost every hit is guaranteed to forward vaporize. It has multiple different attacks, but if you know what you're looking out for, you can evade it in time. For example, this one here, when the scythe changes, it indicates that he's going for a thrust attack. After a good 3.5 minutes, I can finally manage to take down the Ruin Guard, and now we can focus on the rogues, and you already know which one I had to get rid of first. Now for the rest of the video, I switched out Bennett for Traveler. The next fight against these mechs were pretty simple. Bennett would have probably been a bit faster, but this fight wasn't what Traveler was for. This fight is exactly what Traveler was for. Because we have access to Numa damage, the Narwhal becomes way easier to defeat. We can one-shot the eyes that the Narwhal creates, which means we can shorten the fight length dramatically. Even so, the second phase takes 4 eyes to deplete the shield, but we managed to take it down with a bit of help from Monsieur Neuvillette. What the f? And with Act 5 complete, it was time for Bedtime Story. We purposely changed the Anima Traveler here to fight these Abyss Mages. We can get rid of the Crown Mages just like that, and the Pyro Mage also goes down pretty swiftly as well. By the way, I was lying about earlier, I used Bennett for this one domain because I had a Cryo Abyss Herald, and it was an easy fight. Or so I thought, because I knocked it off, not knowing that it respawns with full health if you do so. But now it was time for the final act in the current game, Natlan Act 5. The first fight has us against Rift Hounds, and luckily for us, there's a bunch of NPCs willing to sacrifice their already dead lives for us. Thank you, Auntie Altair, I am sorry I made fun of you earlier. The next fights were against Papillas, and wow, I could really use Kokuik's buff right now. I brought along Anima Traveler thinking I'd break these shields, but wow, these things are f***ed. Also, Vichama does Dendro damage, so I don't synergize with him at all. Bennett would have literally been much better here, I kinda trolled a bit. The good thing is, the shield does break faster after the first time you break it, so we can almost one-shot it with our skill. The next part is rough because there's now 2 of them, and they both do 1 to 2,000 per hit. So unfortunately, we did fall in battle. The stupid thing is that we don't even respawn at the fight, and we have to walk all the way back while suffocating to death. Luckily, I'm technically out of combat, so I can heal up before entering the ring again. The only good thing is that the enemy progress saves and the shields are already almost broken, so we don't have to fight them from scratch all over again. And just when you think we had to break another shield, Kuthrid comes in clutch and keeps this one at bay. So now it's finally time to take down Gosoithoth, and unfortunately, this isn't even our own character. It's a fake. We don't have our special weapon. It's a stupid prototype Rancor. Even so, we defeated Gosoithoth while using Only Traveler, and there we have it. We just beat Genshin Impact with Only Skyward Blade in under 49 hours. Now, the challenge itself wasn't all too bad for the most part. I think that because it's a weapon challenge, we have access to a much better set of characters than a character-only run. And we were lucky enough to pull 2 Bennetts from the limited ban, which made the challenge much easier. About 70% of this challenge was definitely Bennett, but there were some key points that also didn't use him. It's just a shame that out of all the characters we pulled, we only ever pulled 2 sword characters, and both of them were Bennett, so I really don't know what to say. Essentially, by the end of this challenge, it didn't really feel like a weapon challenge anymore, but nevertheless, we still completed it with the original rules, even if I made some sacrilegious choices along the way. Legal, but definitely sacrilegious. But thank you all so much for watching. This was the first full-length challenge I've ever recorded and uploaded, so I really hope you all liked it. If you did like it and want to see more, please make sure you like and subscribe, or you don't have to because I'm not really forcing you. But I really appreciate you all, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, actually, let me end the video with one final pull.